I'm Ali Foster. I'm the Programme Director for Building Berkshire Together, which is the Royal Berks name for the Hospital Redevelopment Programme. And Lynn, who's got her name is Communications at Royal Berks there. That's our Head of Communications. And Graham is on the call, who's leading on our business case and finance. And he's going to talk to us about the shortlisting process in a little while. So for those of you who've come before, you'll know that I generally give a bit of a whistle-stop tour of the new hospital programme and why we're on it. And I'm conscious that and where we are up to date. And I'm conscious that we do have some people on the call who haven't been before, but there are on our website, and I'll draw attention to it in the slides. There are lots of these presentations where I go through in a bit of detail some of the process from previous. So what I'll do is today I'm just going to skip through a few slides in kind of high level and open to questions if people want to have more information as well when I get to the end. And then Graham is going to talk about the shortlisting process, and we'll have some time for some discussion towards the end. So the idea of these sessions is to provide a regular point where we can update you on what we're doing, where any decisions are being made, what our plans are, but also to hear from people anything that they've got, any questions that you've got. You might have heard something in the news and thought, well, what does that mean? Or, you know, is that right? You may see some of our stuff going on in the public at the moment, which we've got a survey out at the moment. You know, what does that mean, and what does that mean in the programme? So it's a chance for people to just ask whatever. We want to run a very open, transparent ship and have as much engagement as possible. So so that's the purpose of the session. We aim for it to be about an hour. Sometimes it's been longer and sometimes it's been shorter. So yeah, fairly informal. So I'm just going to start with a very few slides. If I can share my screen. Zoom we normally work on Teams, so Zoom can sometimes cause me a bit of a headache, but let's see what happens. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, that's good, Ali. We can see that. It's
great.
Not in presentation form, but
so if I went onto slideshow, it generally doesn't work, does it, Lynn? So
no, you can't move on, can you?
Make it as big as possible. So as I mentioned just at the beginning, please check out our website because we have been trying to put weekly highlights up on there. So we have a weekly summary of what we've been doing. So it also means that we probably have two or three posts on the news or on the events section every week. We've got previous events, including videos on there for people who might want to get more detail or up to speed on certain things. So we tend to focus on a general overview in these sessions and then focus in on a particular area that's topical at the moment. So in the past we've done digital, or we've done what are our older buildings, our listed buildings, net zero carbon, and tonight we're going to talk about the shortlisting process, from getting as part of the business case, going from a long list of options to a short list of options, and what that means and what we're going to do with that information. And at the moment, if you go on the website, you'll see that we've got a survey running. And I think it's okay to say, Lynn, but it's been running a few days now, and we've already had almost 1,200 responses, which is phenomenal, really, which shows how interested people are in participating and having their views heard. And we've got a number of events that are also going to happen over the next 6 or 8 weeks in all the different constituencies that we have as part of our patch. So I think our first one is in Maidenhead. And we have invited all the MPs to come and say a few words at those events if they're available. So Theresa May will be speaking at the event in Maidenhead in a week on Friday. And I think we've got confirmation from Laura Farris in Newbury that she will be speaking at an event in Newbury, and we're doing that, offering that to all of the MPs so that they are part of the process of consultation and engagement with people in their constituencies, because the questions that that we have to look at are well, the options for the hospital. So should it be on site? Should it, where it is? Should it be on a different site? And all the implications to the various people in different populations that impacts on. So so yeah, we've got a lot of events happening as well. So do take a look at the website and you'll find more information on there. Just very quickly, we are part of BOB integrated system. That's Berkshire, Oxfordshire and Buckinghamshire. And the point of mentioning this now is to signal that anything that we do in terms of deciding what services we're going to have, we need to join up with and consult with and get agreement from the integrated care system, because they are working to make sure that we all work together as councils and as the NHS to deliver more efficiently. So if, for example, we're really good at a particular area of clinical service, would we want to deliver that for the entire Berkshire, Oxfordshire and Buckinghamshire system? And equally, if Oxford is better at something, should we be putting those services in Oxfordshire? So those are that's a very high level discussions that are happening now. Equally, things like digital, so we all have our own digital systems. You know, those things are done remotely. Are there ways in which we could buy or purchase things digitally that benefit the whole system, and we can save money by doing that at scale? Also, joining up with our local councils means that we need to consider, quite rightly and much more strongly, the impact of working much more closely with social care and the services that councils provide. So anything that we do needs to be joined up with that system. A reminder that we've got 7 sites across the Royal Berkshire. We've got Townlands in Henley, and we've got a site in Thatcham and Bracknell. So they're all listed on there, and they all have services coming out from them, and they are also part of what we consider in terms of the services that we are going to provide. This is a slide just on our strategy, just to say these are the things that we have prioritised as an organisation, and working with the community and with councils around where should we focus our attention. So that talks about our strategy. But on the right hand side, you'll see some of the statistics, just to give you a flavour of some of the activity that we have coming through every year. So it's got 6,000 plus staff and some volunteers in there. I think, you know, when we look at interim or contracted staff, that's about 7,500 staff in total, and quite a lot of activity, as people know, going through A&E and and a range of other services. So just gives you a flavour of some of the things every year that we're turning over. We are on the new hospital programme for lots of different reasons, and they're listed on there, and we call it the 5 C's, cases for change. So the condition of the buildings that we're in, the ability of the buildings that we're in to support the capacity that we need. So for example, even if we had the same amount of beds, the requirements now for the space that needs to be around those beds is much bigger. So even for a similar size in terms of beds, needs a lot more floor space to deliver healthcare for the future and the standards that are required now. So we're already working within conditions that have been considered to not be of the best standard to going into the future. So issues around climate and the capability of digital as well to support delivering healthcare for the future in the community. But also it should provide an opportunity to grow our local economy in terms of the support that we get for the hospital. So although we've got we're the largest employer in Reading, I understand, but more importantly, we're the largest employer of local people in Reading. So people who work with us are not sitting remotely different countries. Sometimes they are in different counties, but not very many. They are very local people, and there's an opportunity to grow those with health sciences, for example, and other industries by investing in our healthcare. So there are opportunities by being on the programme. Our strategic case came up with 3 options to take forward, and that was submitted 2 years ago and has been approved this year. And those 3 options are on the right-hand side there to take forward. And that's 2 options to redevelop on the current site, and 1 option to build a brand new hospital on a brand new site. Those options were developed at quite high level, and not a huge amount of detail, but the strategic case has been approved, and we've demonstrated our case for change in terms of the work that we've done on that. So the journey and the progress that we've made is I can't remember the last time we met actually, but we were hoping for a decision in December, a funding decision. So in May, the total new hospital programme, all the sites that are on the new hospital programme had all their strategic outline cases approved by ministers, and that was to say that it is accepted that we have a strong case for change and we should be on the new hospital programme, and it was approved to take to the next stage of exactly how much funding we need to build our hospital. The idea of the new hospital programme is to build at scale. So if you're building 40 new hospitals by 2030, wouldn't you, it makes sense to look at how we standardise wards and rooms and various parts of building a hospital, and to manage the market, so we're not all going out and buying things at the same time or wanting to contract with people at the same time, that we manage that process and the supply chain. So there's lots of things that contribute to being on the new hospital programme, and standardisation and centralising things are really important. So they've been building what that new hospital programme looks like, and we expected in December, because we knew that there was a decision point at the Treasury in December, early December. We expected some information to come from that. But we've had communication since that information from that meeting, which did reach some decisions, is going through further approval processes, and we expect to hear in February. So we got a letter just before Christmas to say that the funding agreements, which there are multiple funding agreements we're waiting for. So one is, what is the total programme budget for the whole of the new hospital programme? What does that mean for us as a hospital on that new hospital programme? How much money does that mean that we will get? Which would then drive what option we have in terms of taking that forward. So, and then there's work, we made some bids for it, what we call enabling work. So things to clear the site or get the site ready if we're on this site. And they need to be option agnostic, actually, the funding that we've submitted, but we have made we've made some bids, and the decisions around those also are due to come out in February. So that's the latest communication that we've had. So I guess it's really great, I think, that they have made a decision on the total funding programme, or a decision or a recommendation at the December meeting. It's highly political. It's a highly political programme. So until things are actually nailed down and finally agreed, there's very tight controls over the information that's shared. So we do not know what decisions are made. It's at that sort of ministerial Secretary of State level that they are aware of what decisions are made. And I think there is some further work to be done on some of the costings, but we, the new hospital programme, feel confident in sending us a communication just before Christmas to say they expect an announcement in February. So fingers crossed. We were hoping for one in December, but it's February now. So that's what we're waiting for. Meanwhile, we are progressing our business case. So even though we need additional funding to do a full outline business case, we are doing what we can locally, and that involves following a very strict process, Green Book process, that is about taking a long list to a short list, and then doing quite a lot of in-depth work on the short list of options. And Graham will talk a little bit about that a bit later on. Lots of challenges around planning, for example. So do we look at what we can do in terms of planning on site for our options here? Or do we look at other sites? So we have to keep all of those options on the table at the moment, constantly developing options. Uncertainty on funding is always going to be a challenge, keeping people engaged and interested while the decisions get further delayed, keeping people on board, managing the current risk involved in delivering services in buildings that really do require a significant amount of investment, and they have their own risks that we are managing, and costs. We're probably spending a lot more in maintaining and keeping buildings up in this current environment, waiting for a decision, than we would if we were just to proceed and actually start to work on fixing some of those issues. Net zero carbon is we're not on our own in that challenge, and we work closely with people in other NHS organisations, as well as in our local economy, so with the council and university, looking at solutions to reduce our net zero carbon, and we've got a programme on that. But there are a lot of opportunities with being on the programme to improve health for the local population, to improve outcomes, the quality, the experience that people have when they come, and to get treatment. And the efficiency and productivity by having facilities that are better placed and fit for purpose. There are a lot of opportunities with that. Economic development I've mentioned, and some innovation and partnership I think is also worth mentioning. So as I said, current focus and next steps is we're waiting for funding. We are continuing to develop our clinical models. So we had a clinical services strategy signed off last year. And part of that is, what does that mean in practice? So we've agreed to some very high-level principles around providing care closer to home, digitally enabled care, and lots of commitments around what the clinical services strategy will deliver. And now we're doing quite a lot of work with our teams to say, well, what does that mean in practice? Looking at how do we work now, and what does that mean in terms of changing things for the future? And some of that is changing how we work internally in some of our processes, and things like virtual wards, where we can monitor people, more people monitoring at home. But some of that we'll be looking at where we deliver our services. So do we use more of our spoke sites? Do we use other buildings? And obviously a huge amount depends on what funding we get for a new hospital. We're continuing with our engagement, and our shortlisting is something that Graham is going to talk to us about in a second. So I'm just going to stop there for any questions that people have about any of that, and happy to hang on until the end or answer any as they arise now. I'm easy. Lynn will have to tell me if there's any hands up anywhere. Let me have a look at the chat. There's 2 comments in there. Please, could you show the PowerPoint in slideshow? Too small. Oh, I'm really sorry. I can't do it on. I don't know why it doesn't work on Zoom. Yeah, we can send. Have you sent the slides?
I can. I will. You've got the. You've got half of them at the moment, so yeah,
okay.
We'll merge them and I'll send them out.
Okay.
Alan's just asked a question. Do you have a preference yet for a site to move to?
So we are just updating, refreshing our site search. So the last time we did a site search was probably 2.5 years ago, and we had sites in Wokingham, the Thames Valley Science Park, and Green Park, I think, was another site that we looked at. Not a huge amount of detail gone into, but we, what does that cost to build on there and lease on there? And so in terms of other sites, we had a couple of sites in the strategic case that we looked at. We've now just commissioned a company to now do another site search. with the set of criteria to update that on in terms of costs. We've recently had some other options that were suggested to us from meetings such as this that we are exploring. We don't have a preference where to move to, or whether we're staying on site. I think it's going to be very complex to deliver. So in hospital, they call it Hospital 2.0 in the new hospital programme. In their ideal world, and I guess in to some degree in ours, to have a blank space where you can build a brand new hospital with the standards that are, national agreed standards and taken from best practice, will be delivered using modern methods of construction and all the latest technology. That is an ideal, and in some cases that would be best delivered on a different site, because we are very constrained on the site that we're in terms of we're quite landlocked, so we don't have a nice big chunk of space to be able to do some of that with. So it delivers a lot of benefits to be able to build somewhere else, but we haven't got a preferred site. If we were to stay where we are, we have some options if planning allowed for us to build up. And you can build up and still build green. So there are very innovative options there, and it is kind of nice and central for a lot of people, but the traffic is still a problem and parking is still a problem. So how big would the blank site have to be? Oh, I've got that. How many acres, Graham?
We're looking, well, currently we're looking at a site between 20 and 25 acres. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I get 20 and 25 acres, so that's great. Yeah. So we don't have a preferred, the process, and Graham will talk about this, when we go from a long list to a short list, we then do a lot of detailed work around, if we were to move to a site in Wokingham, what are the benefits of that? How much does it cost? And weigh that up against if there's a site in Reading or a site just off the M11 on M4 junction 11, or we'll do a list of what the options are and how much they cost and how much it would cost to transition, and what all of the benefits are. That's part of the work that we'll do as part of the business case in the shortlisting phase. In this phase, while we're going from long list to short list, we are scanning for what the opportunity is in terms of sites around Reading. Is the last redevelopment already paid for, or are there ongoing PPI payments being made to the firms that helped build the redevelopment? So we do have some time left on the PFI that was taken out for Battle Ward, but I don't think there's much left on that, actually. I haven't got the details, but is the last redevelopment already paid for? I think what you're asking is the PFI finished? I don't have all the details of that. I mean, is there being made to the firms that help build the redevelopment? Do you mean PFI or PPI? Sorry, Stephen, are you on the call? Can't see him.
I would think that the only outstanding amounts would relate to a PFI building. Anything else that wasn't subject to PFI would have been funded centrally, probably.
Yeah. Or the sale of some of the land that went towards that. Yeah. Do you have a timeline yet for programme and/or a date for completion? So when we were put on the programme, we were due for construction between 2025 and 2030. All of the hospitals on the programme were due to be completed by 2030. The programme are confident they are still saying they are able to deliver 40 hospitals by 2030. I will caveat that with the definition of new hospital in the playbook isn't necessarily a full new hospital. It can be a new wing. So if we were only funded for a new wing, yes, we could still build it by 2030. But if we got the resource that we need for a brand new total hospital, it's likely it would take us longer than 2030. And that's partly due to the consultation involved, finding a site, the planning, more so than actually building what would probably be a standardized approach to building a new hospital. So it's difficult to say whether we are on target for 2030 because they haven't made the decision on the money, so we haven't got going yet. So all our timelines are just keep moving. I think just when you say site working.
Kate got a question.
Yeah,
got your hand up, Kate.
Yeah, thanks.
Sorry, couldn't see you there.
So thanks. Just speaking from a site perspective around the Berkshires areas, obviously Wokingham, Henley, obviously Reading and West Berkshire. Just thinking about during the lack of ability to actually go to offices and work from home during the last 2 to 3 years of COVID, a lot of businesses have gone in the situation have gone down. Are you looking to go to a site that's already got buildings there or start from scratch from a blank field perspective?
Again,
resources like car parking.
Yeah, again, it depends. So if the money that the new hospital programme was agreed based on building standardized hospitals, that's very difficult to do by refurbishing. If the money was given to us and it was less than what we needed, we're likely to stay on site and try and refurbish what we've got. But it will depend on what the requirements are from the new hospital programme to build brand new, whether we can refurbish or not, because the net zero carbon impact as well is quite significant in building new. So we would look to where we could refurbish or repurpose a building. But actually, if we're going with standardized designs in a brand new hospital, and that's a condition of the allocation that we get, then that might be what we have to do. So it's difficult to say until we know how much we're going to get as to what our options are going to be. When you say site in Wokingham, so what I meant was in Thames Valley Science Park, it's in the Wokingham Borough. So that's where previously there was an option to look at a site there that's owned by the university, but that's now quite a lot of development on it, houses, film studios, and there's quite a lot of pressure on the grid in terms of building that. So building on there, I think there's quite a wait list to get the infrastructure in, but what I meant was Wokingham Borough in that instance. The site search may also come up with additional sites in the Wokingham Borough when we do that in the next few weeks. How much willingness of staff to move to a new site taken into account? We absolutely, we need to take into account what staff, how easy it will be for staff to move. People have built their, they've moved places to move to the and work in the hospital that they're in. Some people staff who on quite low wages travel. If we moved it too far away, would be a massive impact. So we absolutely have to take into account the needs of our staff in looking at a new site. Some some are really up for it. Probably those who would probably find it easier or easy to move, and others would have a different take on it. And we have to look at ways, if we do have to move off site, how we accommodate as many staff as possible and their needs in doing that. When you talk about assessing costs and the benefits, do you include costs to patients in terms of access? Yes. So that is part of the assessment process. So we do what we call an equality impact assessment on everything that we do. So we absolutely, in the consultation process with the public around moving anywhere, those are costs that we have to we have to include. So there's costs that are incurred from us, but actually there are it's a disbenefit to create costs for our patients. So that's something we would, that in terms of scoring, we would score low on if we're increasing costs for patients. Absolutely. It would be interesting to know what the severance costs might be for the PFI if not yet closed out. I don't know much about that, and I don't know how much of that is. I can look into it. Stephen, if you can, if we've got your email, we probably do have your email. I can look into that and see if it's something that we know about and can share. A lot of money is wasted on the empty staff buses. Some of the buses are empty, but actually, you know, some aren't so empty, and we have to try and accommodate other people. The purpose of the staff buses is to free up the spaces that that patients can have access to on site. So the whole scheme to move staff to different car parks and to use the park and ride is absolutely to ensure that patients who come onto the site have better access and better experience, that they're not driving round and round trying to find a space and stressing about getting to their appointment. You know, we've changed the parking in there now that you park and you pay on your way out, so you're not even stressed, worried about trying to work out, can you pay, you know, before your appointment. You actually, you know, pay on your way out when you're finished. So it's all to do with the supporting patient experience. John Sharp, moving to a new location can have major staff impacts. Absolutely. I've got many very experienced staff to take early retirement rather than. Yeah, thank you, John. They're very valid points around the impact of moving the hospital. Wherever we move it, there will be people who we won't be able to accommodate, and that's just being, you know, there are so many options in terms of if we move it, there's so many options that there are bound to be staff, some staff that may be disadvantaged, and we want to keep that to a minimum. That's why events like this, the survey, the constant engagement, and not just sort of windows of it every year, you know, that actually constantly asking so that we capture different sorts of people and different ideas around, you know, how we can take those things into account are played in. Does the quality impact assessment include a socio-economic exclusion element? Can exclude poorer car-free households? I don't know that level of detail, Owen, but let's come back. I'll look into that for you, and we can come back to you. We've got your email, so we can come back to you around that. So I think those are all the chat questions so far, but you know, do keep putting them in. What I'm going to ask Graham to do is to, Janet's just put in there, I think we can be assured Henley will not be on the list in response to a question about Henley. So Graham, can I ask you to share your slides and to talk us through, you know, what is this shortlist, long list to shortlist, why we're doing it, what the process is, what we hope to get, and timelines?
Sure, yes, thanks, Sally.
Okay.
So can everybody see the slides? Good evening, everybody.
You can, Graham.
My name is Graham Smith, and as Ali said, I'm the Programme Delivery Lead for Business Case and Finance, and I'm going to talk to you about the long list to the shortlist process. As Ali said, the Trust is currently writing a business case to support the redevelopment of the Royal Berkshire Hospital, and the structure of that business case is set out in the Treasury's Green Book. One of the sections in the business case will be the economic case, and in that economic case, the first part deals with how the Trust has moved from a long list of potential options for the redevelopment of the hospital to a short list. On this slide, I talk about the sort of overall process to arrive at shortlist. The first element of that is the trust needs to decide what its strategic objectives are, what it needs to do as a trust based on national policy and guidance, regional policy and guidance, and also its own local aspirations and strategy. And once it's determined those strategic objectives, it will then undertake an assessment to determine whether it's capable, using the existing Royal Berkshire Hospital, to deliver against those strategic objectives. And to the extent that it's not, it will identify the case for change. And Annie's already talked about the case for change, which the trust articulates in terms of the 5 C's, which are condition, capacity, capability, etc. And having identified where it needs to make change, the trust will then come up with the investment objectives, which would enable it to deliver the required change. And in terms of the trust's investment objectives, those are very much geared towards those 5 C's. So there's an investment objective about improving the condition of the estate up to a certain standard required by regulations and policy. There's another investment objective around making sure the trust improves the capacity so that it can meet the demand from patients in the future. And there are an investment objective for each of those 5 C's. Having come up with the investment objectives, the trust then needs to work out which options that it faces or that it can come up with that will deliver against those investment objectives. And as part of that assessment, it identifies a number of critical success factors that the relevant option must deliver against in order to move through from the long list to the short list. The long list is developed, and I'll talk a bit about the framework of how the long list is come up with, and then there's a process by which the long list is scored in order to reach a short list of options, which are then taken forward further into the more detailed analysis for the economic case. Within the Green Book, there's a thing called a strategic options framework methodology, which is a sort of standard process by which public sector bodies will work through all the different options that are available to meet the investment objectives, the objectives that it has set itself to deliver against, in the case of the trust, the 5 C's. And the intention is to come up with as broad a range of options as possible, so the trust can explore all the options that it might take. Some of them might be unrealistic, some more realistic, but the aim is to try and come up with a list that is going to cover a wide range of options and which can then be narrowed down to a short list. And that long list is prepared by considering the options which fall into the 5 dimensions which are on the slide, which are set out in the Green Book. And I'll talk about those 5 dimensions: scope, solution, delivery, implementation, and funding in a moment. And essentially what the long list is a number of different options associated with each of those dimensions. So as I said, there are 5 dimensions. The first step that the trust will take is to look at the scope dimension, and that is really all about the services that it will deliver in the future. And as Ali said before, part of that analysis relates to how the trust interacts with the Bob ICS. So it might be sensible for Royal Berkshire to take on additional services or to increase a service that it currently undertakes but could undertake for the whole of Bob. Or it might be that there's an option in which it reduces some of the activity because it's better performed at a different provider within the ICS. Having decided what services or options for the services it could have, the trust will then move on to step 2, which is the solution. What is the physical facility that it will need in order to deliver those services? And an option for that would be, as Ali's talked about, to refurbish existing site and build a new hospital on the existing site. It might be to build a new hospital on a new site. It could be to refurbish part of the existing site and to create like a hub and spoke model where some of the services are delivered, for example, as health on the high street in a hub that is close to where people work or go shopping in the town centre. Once the trust has come up with the options for the physical estate, the facilities, it's then step 3, which is about how is it going to deliver that solution. What are the options for the contractor? And they could be things like a national building contractor could be appointed, or an international contractor. The trust might decide that it has sufficient skills in-house to do part of that role and only need to subcontract other aspects of it. But again, there are a number of different options that it could come up with for the contractor side of things. Step 4 is about how it then undertakes the delivery of the solution, and that could be a protracted phased approach over a long period of time, where it undertakes individual refurbishment on the site, and that's more suited to refurbishment on the existing site. Alternatively, it could take a big bang approach where there's a new site and it's a short period to build and commission a new hospital. And then the final step is the funding, and the funding could be central government funding. It could be a combination of central government funding and if the new hospital is going to be on a new site, there is the potential for selling plots of land that could also go towards funding the solution. There are other sources as well. There's sort of commercial opportunities, and charitable funding could form part of the total funding solution for the hospital. So essentially, the long list is built by considering all the different options, whatever they might be, for each of those dimensions within the options framework. And then once the long list has been developed, the trust will go through a process of scoring each of the options. So that includes a number of different activities. The first is the survey, which Lynn's talked about earlier, which is open for members of staff. It's open to public, patients. It's an opportunity to reflect views in relation to the options that the trust has, and the trust will use that information as part of its process of getting to the shortlist. The other aspects have also been mentioned. So there's the constituency events where we'll get feedback against the different options for the trust, and then finally there will be getting some feedback. Finally, there'll be an option. Sorry, there will be a series of workshops within the trust, attended by executives and other senior stakeholders and members of staff, where each of the options against those 5 dimensions will be scored. And the aim is to whittle down the options against each of the 5 dimensions to come up with a shortlist, very, very similar in terms of number to the shortlist in the SOC. And that shortlist then forms the basis of the detailed economic analysis in terms of benefits, costs, equality assessments that will then the trust will then go through to come up with a final preferred option. So that is a quick overview of the I stopped sharing.
You have?
Yeah, I have. So that was a quick overview of the long list to shortlist process. I'm very happy to take questions on that if anybody has any.
So there is few questions, I think.
So so by March, we would expect there to be a shortlist of about 5 or 6 options. That's what we would. Otherwise, the economic analysis becomes too cumbersome. In terms of the long list, we currently have about we have 4 options for scope. There's about 8 options for the solution in terms of whether it's a new hospital on a new site, a refurbished hospital on the existing site, a combination of those and other factors. So the long list is quite a large number of options, but the aim would really be to get it down to a short list of no more than 5 or 6.
So we've got a couple of comments in the chat. So Anne asked about the figures for future demand and where they come from, and I've explained some of that, but you're looking for a summary of the needs that we're planning to meet. So we have some of that in our strategic case that was done a couple of years ago, but we are obviously updating and refreshing that now. So what I can do is just take that away and send to you the work we've been working on so far, which we've done with a specialist company on demand and capacity modelling. I can send you some of that information and send you what we're working on as well. So I'll take that action away. Would it be possible to sell the RBH site if there's, or is there covenants protecting the use of the site? Yes, there are covenants, which we're going through again, about 250 approximately dotted around the site, amazingly, and a lot of those obviously are linked to the listed building in terms of use. But we did do an exercise that showed a couple of years ago that showed that we could sell quite a bit of a chunk of that, not the bit with the listed building on that. That's something we wouldn't be able to sell, but it wouldn't raise us a huge amount of money if we're thinking of moving and getting land somewhere else, more land, because that's what we'd be looking for, and building, and we're looking at what 1.3 billion to build a hospital, which was estimated a couple of years ago. To sell the land, all I could say is that it wouldn't even reach 100 million to sell the land that we've got in. So it wouldn't make a huge dent. Not that 100 million isn't a lot of money, but it's well south of 100 million. So it wouldn't make a massive dent. It would obviously help, but it wouldn't be huge. How many options on the March 23 shortlist?
Sorry, yeah, that was the question that I answered earlier.
Oh, you've answered that. Okay.
Yeah, aim would be to have about 5 or 6 on the shortlist.
Okay. Yeah, if it's decided to go ahead with a new site, will you still require planning permission to go ahead? Absolutely, yeah. Where will the 6 consultations be? So the 6 constituency meetings, it might even be 7 meetings. We are putting the information up on our website, but we are hoping by the end of this week to have dates and venues for most of them. The one in Maidenhead is going to be held in the community centre. Is that right, Lynn?
Yeah, on Marlow Road, Maidenhead Community Centre of 4 Marlow Road. Everybody's absolutely welcome. I just need numbers because we are going to provide lunch. So if you would like to come and speak to us face to face and listen to Theresa May and come and have your say, come and meet us and see us in person, then we'd love to have you. But I just need you to drop me an email to let me know numbers. So that is a week on Friday. That's the 27th of January at 11 o'clock. So it's 11 till 1 o'clock.
So in summary, the 6 consultations are in each constituency. So, you know, we've got one linked to the MP constituency. So Wokingham, Bracknell, Henley, Reading East, Reading West, Newbury, Henley. Did I say Henley already?
Yes.
Maidenhead. Maidenhead. So yeah, 7 constituencies. As this is a multi-year project, is there a way to be flexible in not determining what the space will be used for until later in the delivery? I assume you need to change things. Yeah, so actually it's a good point. The space that if we were to build a brand new hospital using the standards and requirements that's set out, one of those requirements is that we should have flexible and adaptable spaces, because we could have another pandemic and we might need to move wards around a bit more flexibly than we've been able to do, for example. Or it may be that we have an increase in a certain type of service, and we need to move things around. So we now know that we do need to have much more flexible and adaptable space, which using modern methods of construction in particular, and some modular builds, that's much more easy to do and to build for the future now. So that's something definitely that we have to build into any new build. I saw a hand going up there, but it's gone again. Was there someone called Melissa wanted to? No. Must be seeing things. I thought I saw a Melissa and a hand going up. Okay. Anything else? Any other questions?
Alan's just asked about if the new hospitals have to have private rooms for every patient.
Yes. Yeah, single room occupancy is going to be a requirement for every patient. Now, there may be some time, I think there's discussions about some extreme or certain cases where that may be flexed. That hasn't been agreed. The principle is single rooms for everyone. And a good example of that, which is recent, which is the Liverpool Royal has just opened, and they've got single rooms for all their patients. So you can start to see that that's coming into practice now. And there's a variety of thoughts on the single room occupancy. People worried about, will we be able to have the workforce for it, or will people feel lonely, in them, for example. But in Scotland, they've had that policy since 2010, and their Glasgow hospital was built with single room occupancy. New hospitals that are being built in other parts of the world, America, Ireland, other parts of Europe, they are all being built with single rooms. So yeah, it's not long actually since, because there's a clinical reference group that meet nationally and approve clinical standards, and it's been through that process now, and we got informed about that just before Christmas, that that's going to be a standard, is single room occupancy, which of course not only pushes up the price of how much it costs to build, but the size of the building in which you need to do it. So yeah. Anything else? Any other questions? Have you all done the survey? Maybe we should all just spend the next 5 minutes doing the survey. No. So the survey will really help. It's not just helping because there's only a few questions in terms of the options to help, and it's like a prioritization type of survey. But any comments that you've got that we think we should be aware of that we haven't captured, to absolutely open to any of that. That's really helpful to us. We can sometimes have our heads down and not be aware of it a lot, and we're very conscious. So we're collecting some data around religion or personal data around who's filling it out, not necessarily names. People don't have to leave their names, but where people are coming from, if English is their first, second language, is there any kind of where people are. And so it's helping us to target, we don't seem to have a lot of people answering from this community. What are we going to do about that, and how are we going to get some of that information, which is one of the reasons why we've left quite a bit of time to fill out the survey. It's about I think it's middle of, did you say early March we're closing the survey? So there's quite a few weeks for us to gather that, and that is intended to ensure that where we see that we've got some gaps, that we've got some time to target those groups and make sure that we can hear from them. Somebody said not heard of the survey till now. I know, I mean, we did do a press release. We have gone on all social media. Lynn was relatively impressed with my list of Facebook groups that I posted it in last week, Gossip Girl groups and what have you. Where we've got events that are taking place, where we've been leafleting and flyering, letting people know about the survey and about the events. But you know, there's so many people to get out there. So this is going to help and get words out. It'd be useful to know actually where people think might be a good place, that, you know, where is it that you look for your information or hear about information, and then we can maybe target those as well. So if you've not heard about, so Mr. or Mrs. My Laptop, who's posted not heard about the survey till now, they may say, well, I read this or I read that, so or I hear it in my local group, and so maybe you should target them. Janet, you've got your hand up there.
Yeah, just a couple of things. I have completed the survey, but I have to say it kept going round and round in a loop. From that newsletter, when you clicked on something like, you know, completed here, it took me to a static section, and then I had to kept going back to that page before I could get into the survey. And I tried to do it, Peter's listening here, my husband, and I tried to set it up for him to do it, and again the click thing didn't actually work. It was from that newsletter.
Oh, thank you, Janet. Right, okay.
I found it very difficult. I did keep persevering, and eventually I got to it. But I got to 2 bar charts where that was previous data from previous surveys. But then when it said below, click here, it didn't take me to the survey. I forget how I got there in the end, but it definitely.
Well, I'm pleased you persevered. Thank you. I will be sending out another newsletter, so I'll make sure I've double tested it and tested it again.
And the other thing is, I have sent all that to the Henley Herald, and the Henley Standard are going to be doing a section on it. So on the Herald site, which is the online newspaper, there's the actual link there as well. Yeah. So again, you've probably done it anyway, but I just thought it was an extra thing.
Right. Janet and Lynn, it might be worth you just having a conversation with the survey in front of you, just so that we understand what the issues might be, just to go through, you know, if you've got a few minutes, maybe tomorrow or in the next few days, just to have a conversation about that.
Okay, that's fine.
Great.
Good.
That's fine. Thank you.
There's a comment: if you've identified a site as part of the shortlist, how do you reserve that site to prevent it going to another party for development while you consider your options? Good question. I think it's difficult because we won't know the timing, but we see that in other sites. So other sites have identified a site we're aware of, and there are risks of them losing that site because of that, and we are really hamstrung. I mean, sometimes I think, you know, councils can intervene, or sometimes, but I think sometimes we're just at the behest of the market. You know, if somebody owns a site and they can get more money for it, and there's no certainty for us, then that's a risk that we carry as part of the programme. I don't think we can make people wait. I don't think so anyway. Sometimes the council have certain powers, but generally it's a risk that we take by identifying a site, and then if we wait too long, they may have to move it on. And that is a risk currently with the Wokingham site in Thames Valley Science Park. The university are getting offers on it, and they are speaking to us regularly about getting updates, and then they have to make a decision as to how certain is the money from the new hospital programme for a potential site on the Thames Valley Science Park compared with the certainty of getting money for something sooner, and that will be their decision to make. Given a course at Wokingham. Lynn Ann has put in that there's some problems
Yeah.
with the link.
Just dealing with it now. Thank you very much, Anne. That's really helpful.
Oh, would it be possible? It's jumped about a bit here. Hang on. Will there be a call for landowners to offer sites? That's a good question. Generally, if I think a site search initially looks for sites that are on the market or about to be put on the market, that people know that are on the market or people know are available. Generally, when you put a call out for landowners and you say that you're the NHS, there seems to be a premium put onto to the price. So we kind of tend to first look for things that are available, have already been priced, without us influencing what the cost of that might be. And then there might be a call to landowners to see if people want to offer sites. There was another hospital site, I'm not sure where it is, but they randomly, but they did something similar where they found a piece of land owned by a private owner who wanted to sell it to the, he wouldn't have sold it to anybody else, and did a really good price because he wanted to do it for the hospital. So sometimes there's little gems out there that we can get a good deal if you do put those calls out to landowners. So it is something that we will be considering as part of the process. You would normally buy an option that would allow you to go ahead and buy within a certain period. Yeah, you're right. Has the survey been publicised in Newbury Weekly News? We've sent a. Has it been publicised? Has it gone into the Newbury Weekly News?
Yeah, I believe Newbury is one of the ones that's shown it. I know Wokingham have. I know Bracknell have. So yeah, I've had a few people say that they heard about it via Newbury News. So I think maybe
the Chronicle and Berkshire Live have done some promotion on it as well, haven't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, though. It's really helpful to know.
Okay, well, it's 8:05. I'm sure you've all got really much more exciting things to do, but I really appreciate your comments and some of the suggestions in there. There's some information I know we need to get back to people on to share what we're doing. More than happy to do that. And if you've got any other questions afterwards as well, that you didn't feel you could ask here, or something comes to you afterwards, then do just email us into our email box, and we will try our best to answer it. We will post this, like other videos, on the website, so anyone who couldn't attend is able to watch the video back and hear the updates as part of our regular engagement process. If there's anybody on here who doesn't want to be shown, then please let Lynn know, and we will work out a way. I'm not sure how to try and accommodate that, but we'll work it out. Great, good, Anne, and I know that we've got some stuff to come back to you. So look forward to carrying on the conversation. Okay, I'll say good night to everybody, and hope to see you all again. And I'm sure we'll get a real spike now of 40 people filling in surveys after the talk. And see you soon. Okay, good night, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.